Yeah, I wanted to also talk about EQ. I'm surprised that nobody asked me this. There always these questions, what even I have these questions all the time. Like, should I EQ? Should I not EQ? How should I EQ? EQ before compressor, after compressor? I'm sure like a lot of people have these kind of questions. Um, I think there's not a real rule about that. Here's how I see things. I prefer to correct EQ before a compressor. The reason being, if you're correcting something, if you're putting a compressor on something, if you're putting compressor on a vocal and you recorded it and it's got the rumble from the room or the bass or the singer doing this, which they always do, even if you tell them not to, it's going to trigger the compressor. You don't want that. So you get rid of the junk before. I think it's better. Put a compressor, and then sometimes the compressor can make things a little bit dull or can squash things. So you might want to put another EQ on it, but then you put a different one. So, for example, what I would do is just I'm not even playing anything, but say like I was to EQ something like that, take out the bass and I don't know a notch here for some reason, and compress it. Okay, the Logic EQ is totally fine for doing things like that. I like it. There's no problem. I know some then you can like argue on like forums about, which EQ sounds better at 3.5, but then you just lost your life. So prefer not to do that. So what I would do after that, instead of putting, if I want to add some stuff, then again, I don't have my universal audio, which are really my favorite ones. But and then I would go with like a vintage, like I either Tech or anything that's modeled. Okay, anything that's modeled after old EQs for me. They have a different personality. Again, some people will tell you, "Oh yeah, but I read that all the EQs digital sound the same." Use your ears, because they they don't, they do. At least their curves are different. Um, and technically, I don't use those to do cuts. I use those to do cuts. These are the colored EQ, and these are the surgical EQs. So sometimes you want to just add some juice after you cut some stuff and you compress it. You want to add stuff, you go in there and there you go, you add it. Um, then, there's this whole thing, about a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't really EQ stuff. It's kind of true. You don't want to fix your problem right away by boosting. This is not like, of course, you want to sculpt your mix. You want everything to make sense. Your mix is a box, and you have to feel it, but to fill it, but you can't like overcrowd it. So there's too much stuff in the base. It's not gonna work. So you have to find ways to sculpt it, and that's like with your own tools that you eventually learn. But yeah, cutting frequency that are uh, not needed. For example, I don't know what about this here
Boring.
with the
Stupid.
bass.
Senseless.
So if I look here, see, I don't have anything here because I probably cut it. But even like you could even do that because there might be some information that you absolutely don't need. So you can just go and get rid of it. It's going to make a lot of room for your sound. And sometimes when everything is in the same place and things are fighting, then you're like, oh, my kick doesn't come through enough. Like, so what do? Like a lot of times people will boost the bass, and then it's the worst thing because now your mix is completely like it's really hyped up in the bass and it's still fighting. So then all of a sudden like everything doesn't make sense anymore. So this is kind of my rule of thumb for EQing. And also, if you want to use your whole mix, like I said, like your mix as like a box, you also can, if everything's in the middle, it doesn't really make sense. So sometimes it's good, even just like a hi-hat right there and a snare right there or something, or experiment, or the pads like completely on the sides, so there's room in the middle for like a vocal or something like that. Really use the mix, like the whole stereo spectrum, as well as the depth. Again, if everything is in the front, if your shakers, your hi-hat, your tambourine, and your snare, if everything is like that, it doesn't make sense. That's the thing too with compression. Again, it's a matter of taste. If a lot of the music these days is really, really in your face and everything is like that, but I guess it's a matter of style. Maybe like the more electro dubstep stuff is like that, but then you don't have any subtleties. But yeah, yes.
Do you ever cut like bass beyond audible range, like lower than 30 hertz?
Do I? Um, s- Sometimes, but I never found it to do a great deal. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't feel the need to do it. What I can do sometimes is maybe the kick. For example, on this one, I could go and um, well, that's all drums. But for example, I wouldn't have any problems. Maybe, well, the bass is pretty heavy, this one, but let me see. Oh, again. So because I have a sub bass, I don't have a problem going in there and going like this. Because this one is there, I don't have a problem cutting a little bit, but I don't particularly like it or feel the need to do it. I know some people say all kinds of things. You can read everything. People contradicting each other on different um, forums or magazines and stuff like that. And I also think that a lot of the things that people talk about in these magazines are geared towards people. They're like, for example, Sound on Sound, which is one of my favorite magazines. I mean, it's an old school magazine, and they're based on, they'll tell you like how the Beatles recorded their album, uh, things like that. So they're geared towards the people who really made music in a real studio with, mic placements and leakage and everything. And in these things, it really makes sense. You want to cut all your bass because you don't want all these things to interfere. After that, I think using, your own ears and judgment, you can really become to know what you're doing, and also it can become a matter of style. If everybody's doing the same thing, everything's going to sound the same too. If everybody's using the same plugins, the same preset EQs, I think people need to get their hands dirty, get some machines, get some guitar pedals, anything goes, and to get something that is a little bit more alive. So yeah. Any other question? Yes.
I'm just curious what the source is of the baseline.
Oh, that's them. I believe I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was from their track. I may have cut it. I think it was probably from a live bass, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty deep. It's in low. Yeah, another thing too, like when you do like kind of, yeah, like I said earlier, like a dub thing is like to have these like just these things, these sounds from like kind of like jungle or like just noises, like background noise that kind of makes you feel like you're somewhere else. And if you take them out, they really are missing.
This poem shall speak of the wretched sea that
Yes. Any other questions? Yeah.
So kind of on that note,
Yeah.
that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is that it's really easy for your tracks to sound kind of sterile and
Mm-hmm.
like very digital and empty. And so like what other recommendations do you have for like getting that bedding and like that maybe that like low mid warmth that kind of makes the tracks feel like a lot more full and professional?
Um, well, again, choice of sound first of all, and where you how you place them in the mix will make a huge difference. And your source, if you go from well, it's not plugged now, but if you go with I mean, I'm definitely not against plugin. I don't want people to think that, I some of my favorite producers, that's all they use, like Jimster or Henrik Schwarz. They do amazing things, and you can actually really do amazing things, but they kind of come from a different background. They knew these other machines, so they know how to recreate those sounds, if that makes sense, and with the new technology. If you start with these, it's different. But I think, yeah, again, the choice of sounds. If not everyone has money to buy these. I bought for $175 back in the days. Now it's like I've been offered $1,500 for it, but I don't want to sell it. But so equipment is expensive. It's fun, but it's expensive. But if you want to get just nice warmth, I'd say like just, yeah, again, choose the right sound in conjunction with good sound. Give them the right place in the mix too. If it's your bass line that's coming out maybe from a Moog plugin, just make it loud and proud. Make it above the rest. There's no rule. If it sounds good to you, it sounds good. Plus, it's good to have things that stick out of the mix. For the longest time, I've tried to make my mix too kind of perfect, and I was always like, nothing is sticking out. It's like a flat like photo. There's no dimension to it. So and another thing, just if you need, just cut also a lot of the high frequencies. High frequencies, everything seems to be very bright these days, but um, wow, I sound really old when I say that, but if you cut a lot of those highs, especially in the computer. In fact, I would cut the highs before I cut the bass, by the way. Yeah, I would like do like easily like the stuff like that. I mean, don't hear it. It can become really annoying. And and especially like on stuff like bass, you can roll some up. You can add a filter an additional in your insert, and just lower it a little bit and add a little bit of resonance to get like a kind of a rounder sounds. I mean, it really comes down to the choice of your sound, how you put it in your mix, and don't overcrowd it. Less is more. Even if my tracks have too much stuff in it, some stuff is so hidden that it just becomes like so. And quickly also remix wise, as I want to say, like there's a well, first of all, like if you guys are starting or wherever you are in your career, I think it's very important to choose your remixes wisely because they're going to represent you. So to have the opportunity to remix Rihanna, if it's not your bag, I wouldn't do it, or I would do it under a different name to get the money. These remixes are going to be part of your catalog, basically. Even if you don't get publishing from it, they're going to represent you. They become almost like you're the producer of this track, and your name is really attached to it. And there's a couple ways to do like remixes. Sometimes I'll do a remix, like a lot of the stuff that I've played you guys is completely different than the original. But sometimes I do something that is more traditional and that keeps more of a format of the song, especially if it's a song. And sometimes a remix will take me 2 weeks to complete. Sometimes it will take me a day, like this one, for example. It was the one that I was playing earlier. I did this in just a couple hours. So basically, yeah, there's some tracks like that. I just followed the main arrangement. I did up the tempo probably like 5 BPM. The original was quite slow. I did change the flavor of the track, but because when you do a track like this, you just follow the arrangement of the vocal and you go with it, and it's like it's so easy to just then like add some keys, when needed and everything.
The way it moves through me, the way it soothes me so soothing, it's so soothing.
Um, and use some of the keys that they gave me too. Yeah. And also one thing about the drums, I think is it in this one here. So you have like what you really hear in the song usually when you listen to the whole thing. You don't hear like really the subtleties of the little hi-hats in the background. But if you take them out, I can't mute them because they're all on the file. But if you mute them, then there's really something missing. So it's always to find the balance into like putting too much or too little, finding the right balance there. Yes?
Can you talk a little about just the process you go through when you compose something? Um, just like, just very briefly, like when you do remixes or when you're creating something original, how much time do you spend on crafting the sound to get the
I'm,
timbre or
I'm
or
going to
like
tell you the same bad
is it
answer that everyone is going to tell you. It always depends. Some of them, like I said, some of them are super fast and some of them take ages. Or sometimes, you have a good session in the studio and then you think, wow, this is done. And then 2 weeks later, you're still tweaking something. And it's always different. Same thing with tracks, original tracks. I'd say that most of the stuff always kind of start with the drums, most of it, but sometimes it could be just something like you do on a synth, like a sequence, and you just record that, and then you do some drums or whatever. And a remix like this, obviously the vocal was very important, so kind of built on that. Like I said, this one was quick. I think usually the main idea needs to happen in a few hours. Otherwise I think you lost it. So sometimes you can sit down in the morning and it takes you a while to get there, but maybe at 3 p.m. boom, there you go, and between 3 and 4:30 or something like that you got your track, but it took you 6 hours to get there or whatever. So I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
cool?
That's the only thing I
So
can say.
it sounds like you don't really, like you wouldn't break up. Oh, I'm gonna spend this week just creating sounds, and next week I'm gonna
No,
have
some
stuff.
people do that. I don't know. That's completely. I don't know. Some people. Well, in fact, when I researched a few videos when I was preparing the class, and I watched Stimming and I watched Morgan Page, which are like two different style and also like the way they work or they think. And Morgan Page was extremely structured. To the point where like is actually and it's very interesting, and I got some good ideas from that too. But even like he has like a template even for how his tracks are gonna break down and everything. So he kind of knows that already. For me, I have to have something. I cannot know what's gonna happen exactly. Otherwise, I don't know. I need to have a lot of uncertainty. I just have to like a little bit of magic maybe or something like that to not know.
Cool.
But it's different for everyone. So it's a lot of the same people asking questions, which I don't mind. But seriously, if the other people, if you have some questions, please feel free, because we're yeah almost
I was
finished.
wondering if real quick you had any tips or suggestions that come to you first and foremost on the topic of production and getting stuck, sort of hitting a rut, hitting a wall. Any
That
suggestions you
never
would have to
happened to me.
producers? Never.
um, yeah, like I said, I think it's got to do a lot with the structures, and I think that you just got, you just gotta do it basically. I think like they say like on a conference like TED or something like that, TED.com. They say like you just gotta show up to work, whatever creative work you're doing. You just gotta show up to work. You gotta be there. You never know when it's gonna happen. You might have a terrible day, but yeah, don't. I'd say don't beat yourself up. Like I guess I've never done that either. Uh, you got to keep working in structure. Sometimes you have to let some things go, some ideas before the good ones come, and you just got to be there when they come. It's very don't know. And yeah, and if you're interested in like more like inspirational stuff, like there's this guy I really like. What's his name? Paul Arden. He does these little books. Where is it? I think I wrote it down somewhere. Oh yeah, yeah. So they sell them actually at the MoMA at the boutique, and you don't even have to go in the museum. It's just there. It's not good. It's not how good you are. It's how good you want to be, and things like that. They sound a little corny, but they're actually not. They're like all this stuff from like people in advertisement. And the books are super small, and it's really nice. It's super well designed, and it kind of gives you like some clever little tricks sometimes for to demystify creation. I don't personally believe that it's like that hard. I think we make it harder than it is. I think our mind is very powerful at tricking us to actually not doing things. So I don't know. Yeah, I wish I knew sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, so we can wrap it up, or I don't know if there's few things I didn't talk about. Oh, well, a little thing here, yeah, that could be very interesting too, like just in the mix that I didn't really say. Um, I'm sure you guys have the same problem, especially in Logic, where like the master here starts getting really red really fast. I'm sure it happens. That's a weird thing also with Logic, but internally, in with all the DAW, it always happens, especially with Logic. um, the way to you basically for some reason, and I can't even explain why, but you're not supposed to do that. This is always supposed to be at zero, and I never got the right answer. But one thing I know is that the way to get a better mix, a better summing in the box, is to have everything very low. So I wish I had like a real session so I could show. For example, when I would start mixing, if I start with my kick, well, we're all like kind of mixing as we go, but sometimes you just want to start a mix fresh. I'd say like when you see your kick go, you don't want it, you let it go. Maybe for example, here, let's see if I have just a kick. Okay. Okay, let's say we're mixing now, and let's say there's just one kick and we're not hearing the rest. Okay. And so I would I would go as low as like when you're mixing. It's gonna sound creepy, especially since people, this big loudness war thing, which like you don't want to be part of it because Motorhead won that loudness war ages ago, so it's no point. Um, Basically, if you have like, say like you have your kick here on the bus, some people say like -10. I say -15, but it's just because it leaves you a lot of headroom. Once you start piling up things, this thing is gonna get higher. The reason is like also like when once you're done with your mix, if everything is like so high over here, then you can't do anything with it. Some sounds start to disappear, and that's when you tend to push things. If everything is very low and you have like a really healthy summing here, it's okay to have like 5 or 6 dBs of headroom there. The mastering engineer is going to take care of that, and he's going to be happy, and we're going to have a better mix. But when you have 5 or 6 dB, you can go and say, you know what? I think the bass really need to stand out. I think it needs to be the star. Then you can push your bass 2 dB because you have room. If you don't have room and you push it, then you're just asking for it. It's just like everything is going to be fighting. So this is something that I think is very important. And I don't put any limiter on the bus. I think I mean, you can do it again. It could be a matter of taste. Some people like it, or you can mix with it. Some people like to mix with it and then take it out, so they know how it's gonna sound when it's in. I don't know. I personally think it's better to get mastering. Yes.
Real quick to add to that, like the easiest way to kind of solve that if your master bus is clipping is to turn down all your tracks and turn up your monitors. Like ideally, you'll have like a reference position for your monitors that you basically mix at all the time, well, which is like around 83 dB SPL. So that's where like your basically your ear's frequency response is the flattest. So if you just kind of have like a calibrated level that you listen to your monitors at, then your mixes will be a lot more consistent, and then you'll also give the mastering engineer a lot of headroom for when he finally masters.
Yeah. Which what is that technique you're talking about? There's bobcats. Yeah, I never quite understood exactly, but it makes sense, and I'm one to always reach to the knob and put it like louder and it's softer. And I know it's bad. It's a really bad habit. Yeah, but no, you might be right. But having said that, yeah, you really need to. I mean, in here, I wouldn't touch. If I'm really too high in there and I don't want to mess around with the mix. By the way, to do the way that I found to turn down all the volumes equally on there is I just well actually you just select your audio track, not your buses, and you can do that. But as you can see, it's not moving at the same exact. Um, it's not moving all equally, or at least it doesn't look like it. So what I do is I'll just do a quick group, then I deselect, and then boom, now it's like completely. So you can turn down your mix if you don't have any automation. If you have automation, what do? If you turn down, say like, okay, we're at 0, to down your mix, say like, you see here it's -2, and you have automation on this one, well then, say no groups here. You just go, okay, well, here, I'm just gonna put a gain plugin, for example, and then give it like a 2 dB down. That's like the easy fix, for example, to like kind of fix this problem. Um, yeah, those I don't touch these. And if there's like a massive problem sometimes, and I don't want to touch my mix, it's just a matter of 1 or 2 dBs, then I might put a gain plugin, or there's like Sonalsys, a free meter that you can turn down the level on that. It kind of seems to work for me. It seems to do a better job than turning down the volume, and I cannot explain why. So unfortunately. So any more questions here?
Use pan law.
Pan? Yeah, yeah, you should. There's different rules. I'm not. I've tried the heavy panning. I don't think it works as good for dance music. But then if you ask Bruce Swedian, who mixed all Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones stuff, he's a heavy panner, and his stuff is amazing. His stuff really breathes. I mean, he'll literally put something like right there and something right there, and it just has a way to make it work. For dance music, sometimes I find it hard, especially a lot of the club systems are in mono, and yeah, again, this just sometimes just a little bit really helps. The hi-hat, like a little here and yeah, a little there. Which one? Oh, yeah. Actually, I use that a lot. That's actually, yeah, one of my favorite things. So like here, I'll use this one here. Yeah, I think it was in my notes somewhere. So, well, but here in Logic, you have a thing called sample delay. What it does is it's basically no, I like that a lot because it's very simple. I use that on vocals a lot. Actually, maybe I can show it. Let me show. Yeah, let me show it on vocal, for example. Here, delay sample delay. So you're moving something. You're moving the file slightly on one side, like a matter of samples. So let's move. Now I did it really drastically. You guys get stereo? Because I don't. Yeah, okay. So, so one of them gets moved a little bit. And you can even do that on mono files because you can. So that's really good. It's good to clean out the middle sometimes. So even, for example, if it's a mono file, I think you can still do it and do sample delay mono to stereo, and then you would have that. But like something like a bass or a kick, you don't. Technically, you don't really want to mess with the stereo on those. But again, you can break any rules you want. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Big thank you to Fred.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Really appreciate you guys coming out. It's not easy and tough to get artists to reveal their secrets, so we're very appreciative of that.
But there's no secret. Again, that's the thing. Also, Bruce Swedian says it's one of the most stupid thing, to like want to keep secrets, because people are gonna do what they're gonna do with this is not gonna do the same thing as you. So, and it would be what's the point, If people use that to make like great music, then why not? It's better that than giving them bad secrets, I guess.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. We always appreciate your support coming out, and we got a lot more events coming up, so stay tuned, and thanks for coming out.
Yeah.